Good morning, folks. I hope all is well with you folks today, as well as we are able to be at this time. Let's see what happened. I actually got I started getting a little stir crazy last night, and I just kind of stepped out on the porch for a few minutes and was sort of stared out into the night, and that kind of helped a little bit. Then I noticed there was a wasp's nest that had suddenly appeared since I'd been on the. By suddenly, I mean I haven't been out on the porch for and when I say porch, I'm actually talking about a balcony, because I'm in an apartment 3 stories up. I just sort of stepped out there, and then it was like, oh yeah, there's wasps have built a nest here. I should probably go back inside. Because I just did not feel like dealing with wasps that evening, and I didn't feel like trying to evict anyone myself as these things go on. I thought I would just wander in and say hello. I don't know if I'm going to have quite as much time this morning, because I've got to get ready for we have a Las Vegas coming up this afternoon, and so that happens sooner than a lot of other things on this channel. We're going to be diving into that a little bit later today. In the meantime, I thought I would go ahead and look over. What was I looking over? Oh yeah, well, it's I tried to something I try to do when I start getting ready for this is I try to look through and see if there are any news stories about stuff other than the virus that's going on right now, because, like I've said before, I see it as my mission to distract those who want distraction. Obviously, don't use distractions to take you away from what you absolutely need to be focusing on. The realities of life and all that. But if there are folks, if you feel as though you're good as far as realities of life go for right now, I'm here for you. I went back and I looked at what holidays we have again today, because it was very difficult to find any news stories about stuff not having to do with any of that. They're happening. They're just way off. Hello. Good morning. Hey, Alyssa. Hey. Just basically searching around for that. How are you doing? I hope you're doing all right. So I went ahead and I went back and I looked at more of the what holiday is it today? Because apparently it's National Cheesesteak Day. That's evidently important. I will tell you, I am woefully bereft of the. I understand that there are certain foods that in certain areas, certain parts of the country, or certain cities in particular, people are very religious about, shall we say. So up in Philadelphia, I understand that is they have a local animal called the cheesesteak that they go hunting every year, and I believe this is the day on which that happens. I'm pretty sure. They have to go forth and catch the most delicious cheesesteak, and then I believe they cook it over a fire when they get it back home. I'm not sure. Get your first unemployment check. Awesome. Trying to keep busy at home. Cleanliness is an interesting thing. it's I guess people keep telling me it's good to know where everything is. I suspect this is true. So yeah, sometimes I appear to I appear to have antimatter going on of some kind. Oh, look at that. That's cool. All right, let's see if we can fix that in a minute. But yes, this is good. This is good. You have time to prepare for Salt Maw. This is good because there's so much happening. We're getting ready to happen, I feel. This is very good. Very much enjoying that campaign. It's very cool. Let me see if I can fix the antimatter problem that we have going on here. Okay, slightly. let's see how that does. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Our station master is going mad with power. It was she who holds the reins on the Salt Law campaign, and I'm delighted. It's an excellent thing to do. It's one of the reasons game mastering can be such a rush, really, in a way, as there's so many things you can do. It's such a good outlet. It's such a good outlet. I will say the one thing on unemployment is I have done it before, and it is a bitch and a half to try to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and sometimes one does it the other way around. So I do not envy anyone who's trying to go through that system. And I'm very glad to hear that it is functioning for you. Very good. We have identified that it is indeed National Cheesesteak Day. We've also identified that it is American Diabetes Association Alert Day. So this is good, because we need to be very be aware of these things right now. Why is someone calling me now? Okay. I'm gonna have to take this. So I'm gonna put you on this for just a moment, and I'll see what needs to be done here. This is family. Hang on. I'm gonna put you on this for just a moment, and I'll see what needs to be done here. This is family. Hang on. Hi. Thank you for hanging on. That was my godmother. She's okay, which is very good. She's up in New York City. She's in her 80s. She's in her 80s, and so I was a bit concerned. She actually, as it happens, it's one of those strange things where you have it's one of those cases where she had something else that she needed to go to the hospital for before the outbreak happened, and because that she had to be dealing with. It was like a different. I think she has a thing that keeps coming back. There is an illness she has that keeps coming back. I don't have the exact name of it, but it's not hugely debilitating per se, but it's something she has to go back for every now and then, because sometimes it can get to her. So she was in the hospital, and then quarantines and such started happening, and it turned out she was in the ideal place to kind of be sheltered from what's going on right now. So I'm and we didn't hear from her for I hadn't heard from her for a couple of weeks, and she hadn't posted to social media or anything, so I was getting very worried. And then, like a couple of nights ago, she put a she called me and she left a message, so it's I'm just very pleased that she is okay for right now, because I can't be there for her, so. What you gonna do? She has to live her own life, and I have to live my own life and be able to actually. Right now, I'm living in a place where I can afford to live, so that's pretty much how it works. That's happening on my I won't go into too much. I won't go into too much detail. She used to write music, write a lot of music, and she would basically did a lot of things where she would do sort of play the piano for folks at a rest home. Recently, that was what she was doing for work, and now she's retired. So it's just I have very few people who very few family at this point in my life left, and I'm just always glad to hear when they're doing okay. But enough about that. Like I said, I'm supposed to be a distraction, so we're going to try to get back to that. So we have International Day for Achievers also apparently today, which I'm curious about, and we also have its National Agriculture Day. So please grow some crops today, and if you possibly can, as quickly as possible, for National Agriculture Day. To just play Stardew Valley or something. I might do that tonight or something. Also, all that is going on. But anyway, it's I won't go into huge detail, or try to go into huge detail, and this website doesn't, so we don't have to worry. This International Day for Achievers is a day that honors those who have achieved something in any field. Well, that's good. So, do a thing. I think that's pretty much the whole point. And doing a thing can be very. It doesn't have to be huge. I think it can be just be doing a thing. But as far as this day is concerned, as far as it says, common honorees are doctors, teachers, scientists, conservationists. Those who are having an impact in making the world a better place. And right now, that's a lot of folks in various service industry. Various service industries, which is they're still out there right now being awesome and helping keep the rest of us alive. So that's always great. But that's kind of what I was gonna just talk about for that. I was just gonna skim those. I don't want to dwell on those today. I have another thing I can open. I have another package that I haven't opened yet. And so I was thinking I would go ahead and open it. I have no idea what's in it, but I figured I'd get that out of the way before anything else happens. As it's been sitting here for several days now. It's a tall package. It's from Black Box Systems. I cannot remember what it is. This is one of those delightful bits of self-giving amnesia that one gets when one backs a number of Kickstarters considerably larger than one should back. Is pretty much the case there. But we will see if we can what this is. Let me fix something here. There we go. And I'm going to open this up and find out what is going on with this. I have scissors. Okay. Yeah. As we are, this is the slicing through. This is the slicing through the tape and packing labels portion of the programming. As we try desperately to not cut too deep, damage whatever is inside. Okay. At least I've got some idea of how far from the top this stuff is, so that's good. And we're now cutting along the sides. Okay. Oh my god! No, actually I have no idea what this is. Let me take a look. It's a long object, as we may have suspected. I'm still not completely sure what this is. So we shall take some of the plastic off. What the hell is this? Okay. So, this appears to be something I backed. This is a game, apparently, this is a game called Inhuman Conditions that apparently I backed at some point. It's actually, I was a bit surprised, it's a physical game. I don't back physical games much anymore. I usually do not. Let's see, what does this say? In a not-too-distant future, robots have become almost indistinguishable from humans. There's nothing to stop them from living out their lives peacefully among their organic counterparts. Nothing, that is, but the Bureau of Identity Compliance. Play as one of the Bureau's investigators, hunting for hidden robots. Oh, this is an Orwellian game. No wonder I picked it up. Hunting for hidden robots behind every humanoid face, or play as a suspected robot desperately attempting to convince the Bureau of your essential humanity. Once you've been selected for an audit, 5 minutes of surreal interrogation is all that stand between you and the invasive confirmation unit. Ah, yes, this is the home Voight-Kampf kit. Apparently. So that's yeah, this is a game where you play with one of the, it's a two-player game that you sit, and I'm remembering more now, is that you sit and you play with someone else, and that you interrogate them and try to find out if they're a robot. That's basically what this game is. So this strikes me as a game that might be fun to play at some point. So, you know, at some point in the future. But this, I like the box design. It's very cool. I'm not gonna. I don't know if I have time to dig deeply into this box right now. And ruin the packaging. I feel like this is one of those things that we should let sit for a while, and then I should open, like, you know, months later, like I'm doing with those in there. So we'll see. That was. We'll take a deeper look at that another time. But that looks cool. That looks cool. So that's neat. Next. So I do have. I went through looking at my shelves again, and I picked for another book to look at and just chat about briefly. So I have. In a former life, I was in the theater. So I have a bunch of plays and stuff in there. And one thing that caught my eye that I realized I might have some stuff to talk about is some plays by Harold Pinter. It says complete works, but it's actually one of a number of volumes. So it's actually a volume of the complete works of Harold Pinter. This is volume 2. And I picked it up originally back in the 90s when these kinds of things happened, when I was in a theater company. And we wanted to do one of the review sketches that is in this book. It's basically the sort of review shows are kind of like, you could say sketch comedy shows to a certain extent, but they had other types of. It's a review thing is they included sketch comedy, but then it also would include things like people doing other talents, basically singing, doing other entertaining things on stage, that kind of thing. And that was in 1959, apparently. We did this thing that was broken up into a number of tiny segments, which we just sort of we called it this strange sort of. I don't even want to call the show existential per se, because really we were just being silly and trying to just grab a bunch of sort of esoteric stuff and throw it at the audience. So I think it was we called it Oozy Owie 2. The title, we arrived at that title by grabbing a bunch of Scrabble tiles and throwing them down, and just sort of that's what it came out to. And so I'm not sure why we even to this day why we started with the number 2. I think at the time, I seem to remember at the time we had said that because we wanted to create an air of mystery about 1, and also it was just a joke. We were very silly people. But the sketch that we did that from the Pinter sketch that I did in here was Trouble in the Works, which I did with my friend Michael. And it's just basically, it's a lot of wordplay. Just sort of reading through it again today, I realized that at the time I didn't realize just how much innuendo there is in this. And I think perhaps that's one of the reasons people sort of recommended sketches like this to me in the first place. Because at the time, I was a young lad. I was in my 20s, but I did not catch up to being as versed in certain things as as most of the rest of the world was until my late 20s. So in my early 20s, I could say things like hemiunibal spherical rod end without, breaking up at all, because I thought it was just a silly thing to say. Hemiunibal spherical rod end. Because every single one of these, and I look at these, and every single one of these devices that they mention in here, I realize has a double meaning. And I did not realize that at the time. It was one of those weird things where I could vomit forth a bunch of stuff. If I have a script, I can be awesome with it. I can just vomit forth whatever it says and sound as though I know what it means. I have no freaking clue, though, sometimes what it means, what it is that I'm saying. And if you'd like to see more of that, that's happening Thursday and Friday. Hi, Matthias. Hello. I'm talking about Harold Pinter for a moment. And how apparently it's considerably more ribald than I realized at the time that I did it in my early 20s. But it's just basically it's this thing about, and also I realized that it's a kind of a take on the steel industry. Am I echoing? Bloody hell. Wow. So, folks have been listening to me echo for the last several amounts of time. For about half an hour. Matthias, thank you for letting me know. Yes. So folks are aware, there is not a chorus of myself. I do not have a clone sitting in the next room repeating everything that I say just a moment afterward, because that would be strange. We don't truck with that here. Yeah, we totally don't truck with that here. But yeah, no, it's professionalism. So yes, no, the thing that we were this thing that we were doing, Trouble in the Works, is also about, I realized, sort of the steel industry, I think, in the United Kingdom. It's kind of a satire of that to an extent. Yes, that's right. The recitation ghosts have fled. I know not where they have gone. I could bring them back if you like, but I think we're going to keep them in the background now. Yeah. So we did this sketch and we had a lot of fun with it, and it is of course only now that I realize that it's about considerably more than I thought it was at the time, which is, par for the course for just me growing up, right? Amusement. I have other things over here also that I will display, because I was going through my collection of stuff, and I have a bunch of older games. I also have a bunch of newer games, but I was just figuring out what things do I have that I could reminisce about. Oh my God. Okay. Let me show you what this is before. Let me show you what this is before I open it at all. Some of you may be familiar with this franchise. I understand it's quite popular. Not sufficiently popular right now, I think, with Steven Spielberg for him to continue considering making the next one, but himself. But yes, so this is the Adventures of Indiana Jones role-playing game. It was put out in TSR by TSR. I wonder if I can see a year on it, so that perhaps it will tell me. 1984. I never actually got to play it. A couple of people got this for me at the time when it came out because I was a fan of the movies. There are a lot of these little paper cutout miniature thingies in here that you could use, and I had no idea what it all meant. The Ark of the Covenant is not looking very good right now. It's kind of dinged up. It's kind of not doing too great. There are a lot of ground pieces that I assembled without knowing what they were for. This has been a while. Never actually got to play it. We even had the modules they came out with for it. We have the modules for Temple of Doom. By we, I mean me. But it was me and my ma. And we had the module for Raiders of the Lost Ark, so you could just basically play through the plots, I guess, or try to diverge from the plots. It was a very odd thing. They had these things that kind of is what GM screen, battle mat type deal on cardboard, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom Adventure Pack by Tracy Hickman and Michael Dobson. Here's a familiar name. Raiders of the Lost Ark by Adventure Pack by Douglas Miles. Okay. And apparently the core book isn't in here anymore. So I don't actually have the rules anymore, I guess. or they're in a box somewhere by themselves. They are probably gone. God, hey, use fate. As I recall, it was a percentage system, and the thing that I tried to do, use its system for one game that I tried to run in my gaming group in high school, eventually, and I was trying to do sort of a spy game with it. And I think they also had the license for James Bond and put it out under the same system at the time, but we didn't have that. I just had this. The funny thing about it is that, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really understand a lot of the tropes of the spy genre at the time, as much as I later came to. Something that came to my attention finally, and it was like one of those things where I only had so much patience and, ADD and all that, so trying to read through the book to figure out how to make characters, you couldn't really, especially not with this game, because the Indiana Jones game had all the characters pre-generated. So, because you were playing the characters from the movies, so there was not really any way to figure that out. But I guess I remember reading through the rule book when I was a kid, and that kind of helped me figure out, to an extent, I think, kind of get a better grasp of what role-playing games kind of were, because it was like, okay, you're playing through as these characters doing different things, because all the examples they gave were of things not in the movies. So it was interesting. I think that at the time, the only thing at the time when I tried to use it as a sort of a system for a spy game that I learned was that you need to specify to people sometimes when they are rolling sort of two 10-sided dice intended to be a D100 type situation, that you must specify which is the 10s and which is the 1s before they roll. Because I had them just roll for their stats, because at the time we didn't know much different. Point buy was a new and strange thing to us back then. Of course, later on, and I was trying to think, they were all really, really successful at everything, and I was like, okay, somehow they're just going to be successful at everything. I don't know. I lost hope toward the end. I was like, there's no way they're gonna, it's gonna beat them. And then afterward, I was looking at their sheets, and I was like, wait a minute. They just decided which die was the 10s and which was the 1s. Because I noticed every single number had the first number, the 10s digit was higher and the 1s digit was lower. And I was like, wait a minute. They cheated. So that was an important lesson learned. And Matthias is saying it's like how the GM handbook from the old Star Wars game made me realize you can play scene to scene and don't need to play out every moment, which was mind-blowing. I know, right? You can jump ahead? What the hell? That's amazing. Wait, you can use cinema tricks in this? Yeah, it's one learns a lot as one progresses through life. About how these things work. So that's kind of how it. That was it was an interesting experience. I'll just put it that way. But it just was kind of amusing to see, just sort of looking back how they put things together for it. I also remember that in the core book which is no longer here, there was an adventure that I never actually managed to read all the way through. That was just a new thing that they wrote for it, and I can't remember. It was Icons of Icomenon or something like that. They made up. I think they either stole or made up a civilization. I don't remember which at this point. And something about Spoilers for the '80s, by the way. For a game written in the '80s, but apparently it's something about there was something about a ceremony that they do where they bathe people in gold, so that these things that you think are statues actually turn out to be bodies of people. They're not actually gold statues, and that's all I remember. I don't know if that was supposed to be. The '80s did have a good finale. Yes. I remember standing in line at the release of Batman in 1989. Was that the finale? I'm not sure. May as well have been. I was like, oh, this is what the 90s are going to be like. I say, sitting there watching this Tim Burton Batman movie. And we foolishly embraced it. How dare we? Ah, dear. But I also went digging through, and I have remembered I have quite a few boxes from old computer games that I played, okay, yes, so yeah, okay. Admittedly, there were things that actually happened that in real life that perhaps might have had a good. Matthias is spoiling everything by reminding us that there's a real life outside of TV and movies. Yes, the Berlin Wall coming down did perhaps have a slightly bigger impact than Batman '89. At the time, I remember that I was. The thing is, I thought, okay, I saw about this on the news back in '89, when I'm assuming it was in '89 or thereabouts, when the wall came down. That seems about right. I was in high school at the time, and I remember my parents getting kind of excited about it, or my mother getting excited about it. Anyway, my father was living away from us at that time, and the thing with it was that it's like I was like, oh wow, well, this is amazing. I didn't know why it was amazing at the time. I couldn't quite wrap my brain around it. But apparently this was like a really big deal. And I was trying to figure. I was like, I know that it's like they're reunifying. I think they're going to reunify Germany. It's coming up. Because I knew about World War II and all that, and so I was like, they split Germany up. Germany's getting back together. I went to school like the next day or that day, and the first thing I went up to, I thought that my German teacher would, the teacher in my German class would have some interesting words about it. And I went up to her and I said, oh, well, isn't it amazing? The wall's down. And she said, yeah. And that's it. That was all it was. We didn't talk about it in the class at all. It was just basically learning how to speak German. That was it. So, unfortunately, I was not in a... I was not in and among people who could in fact appreciate what was going on in any tangible way. But it helped me understand it a lot better later on when I got into Le Carré. I'll put it that way. But it was only through other media that I came to like, wait a minute, okay. But, you know, it's just like I was saying before, you know, the longer you live, the more you realize how things work. But one other thing I'm going to try to chat about here real quick, because I'm going to need to probably go relatively soon, because I have, again, I got to prep for Las Vegas. Not as much as I'm not running it today, so that's going to be good. Yeah, the other events, Matthias is saying from the 80s that he remembers are Chernobyl and the Challenger disaster. Chernobyl was kind of even off my radar somewhat. I heard it. People were saying the word Chernobyl a lot, and I didn't know what it meant. And then, of course, I find out later what it actually is. Challenger, which I was in grade school at the time, I remember kind of more vividly because... oh, you weren't allowed to go play outside? Oh. Was this as a reaction of some kind to things like Chernobyl going on, or was this more just a general rule? I'm curious. That folks had because of the radioactivity. I mean, you know, I can understand that people not wanting to go out and play in the radiation. That's probably a wise move. The weather pattern during those days right after. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing where it affected your life tangibly. We had like no idea really from those of my generation at that time. Also, no milk. I heard there was like a thing with milk and radiation. I remember there being something about that, and people worrying about it. And I can't remember the it was like ages ago, but yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I do remember Challenger kind of very, very specifically because it was. I remember I think we went to some kind of break or lunch, and then we came back because they were gonna do like we were all in our school. We were gonna watch these lessons that the teacher that they sent up was supposed to be school lessons from space. We thought that was going to be really cool. And yeah, they when we got back from I think it was from lunch. They were showing the TV was on, but they were just showing that, and their teachers said the shuttle blew up, and we were watching. They were showing it over and over again. The shuttle going up, and we were like, oh my god. Because we were, it was very visual. And we were we were just like very I was very bummed out about it at the time. I was just sort of in shock. And then I think I had a lot of my fellow students were basically sociopaths, so as soon as the next morning they were as soon as that late afternoon, they were starting to kind of just talking about not caring about it, and then as soon as the next morning, they were coming in with the jokes. I'm still kind of feel as though, and I know it's at least this way or was this way when I was growing up in the United States, is that the school system is kind of in some ways shares a lot with the prison system in terms of the way that it tries to herd people around and force them to be with each other. But, yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. But, yeah. So it's like, it's crazy. Just sort of the way we're also, and a lot of us are being right now very casual about human life as well. But it's I know sometimes I think it's how some of us deal with it, and then for others it's just like we're learning so much about our fellow people right now. I am actually glad to see the outpouring, though there is, of people wanting to show support for each other. That is excellent. But a channel support question. You have a channel support question? Yeah, actually, you may want to DM me with that, because there are some things possibly in the works, but I still have to... I have to figure out... I have to actually sit down and make my brain do it, like with anything. But there will be things coming, I think, that I'm going to add to this channel, and we'll see as far as things people might do should they wish to. As far as just... I'm not talking necessarily about programming yet, although programming as well a little bit later. But yeah, there's going to be some more stuff happening, because I think it's important to adapt. And these are actually things that I've had sort of in the works, I've been thinking about for quite a while anyway, and it's like, this is the time. But at this very moment, what I'm going to show you, real quick, is this. So, when I was a young lad, I got into Sierra games, the computer games by Sierra Online, and the Quest for Glory series is, I think, my favorite adventure game series, like, of all time. My favorite adventure game is Quest for Glory 2, this is the anthology. I actually had all of the boxes. I don't know where they are now, unfortunately. I think that a lot of the original boxes got crushed or tossed for those. But the Quest for Glory series was really cool to me, because it was combining the idea of RPGs with the idea of adventure games, and it did it in such a neat way that kind of still followed the idea of it was still totally an adventure game, in very much the Sierra mold that I was already addicted to. I am going to show you some images now as we go through this and are talking about it. I'm going to try to see if it'll still play. Yes, it will. Awesome. I got very excited, basically, with Quest for Glory for a few different reasons. That and, the whole adventure portion of it, and D&D kind of connected portion of it. And then also just the idea that you had these different paths you could take as these different characters. And just the sheer level of potential with it. At the time, also, it was around the time we were getting by the way, it used to be called Heroes Quest. The first Quest for Glory, first one came out, and this is the version that we had. Was Heroes Quest, was what it was originally called, and the first one was So You Want to Be a Hero. Before they were forced to change it by, I think it was at the time, Milton Bradley. Or Games Workshop. Yeah, Games Workshop basically decided to swoop in and say, we're publishing a board game. We've acquired... Yes, that's right. They'd acquired it. We've acquired this board game we're going to republish. And we're going to throw all of our... legal people at you, even though what you're doing actually is legal. But yeah, Gabriel Knight series I'm going to talk about sometime. Because I was into that too. At least the first two. I have never actually played the third. I need to. Yeah, this game basically was it meant a lot to me. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours playing. Also, you could transfer your character at the end to the next game, which was freaking delightful. So it was very neat. This game basically you would do this thing where you would you assign yourself stats, and then you do that, and then you wander into this Germanic village, called Spielberg, and they you have adventures there. Let me see if I can actually. There in the surrounding areas. Oh, I see that it's... Yeah, okay, never mind. We're having a little trouble there. There we go. So we want to see kind of the... You want to see the top of that. So that's been very neat. Just sort of reminiscing that I found these boxes here. But yeah, it's... I played through 3 times as the different character types, which was very cool. Oh, I see that it's not doing it anymore. Let me fix that. Stand by. There we go. Yeah, it's only gonna. Yeah, I think I better not enlarge it because it'll. It's not gonna deal with it. But yeah, those are back in the days of DOS, or DOS as we called it at the time, because that's what we understood it to be. We liked our acronyms. Some of us, and by us I mean just me and my mother. Let me see. I'm gonna pull it over here. There we go. We had to configure the boot up depending on what games you played. The kids have it so easy now. Yeah, I remember going in and having to set up files in the. We had a PC Junior. Part of the reason why we had a PC Junior is because I was enamored with King's Quest, but they didn't. The PC Junior, which was capable of a 16 color setup. The games that came out after a while weren't taking advantage of that, and it was you couldn't actually until later get something that worked on the PC Junior. So you had to like do this end run around it with a text file you had to create to make it trick the computer into thinking, or trick the program into thinking it was running on a Tandy. And then you could get the 16 color graphics. And I can't remember how we did it. But yeah, we were so happy when we got a 486 computer. With this was long ago when we had slow computers that by now are considered incredibly slow. We had 386 model, 486, and we got the Roland MT32, or in our case, the card version of that. That is a music synthesizer, and was a freaking delight. Because it was as though you had an orchestra sitting in... Not really, but it was as though you had a virtual orchestra sitting in your living room. And I'm just going to scroll through a little bit of this. As you see, that's the folks at the inn that you follow into Quest for Glory 2. There's the forest. There's the centaur. There's a lot of stuff. This is fighting an ogre, apparently as a rogue. But there's just a lot of the combat system was very odd. Oh yeah, that's right. It was, as a rogue, you had to throw as many daggers at this guy as you possibly could. Yeah, Roland was like amazing at the time. We were like, how does this work? And it was for us it was quite glorious. So you have this thing where you're hanging out and fighting with the battle master. There's a lot of stuff. Basically, a lot of things. You had a day and night, and if you go out at night, certain things would happen. This person just basically likes to ransack houses. He's playing the rogue. But then there was stuff to do outside as well. So it was a a very cool game for us at the time. I'm just briefly going to touch on the others. There was a VGA remake that they did several years later, where they took a lot of clay models and to make people's faces. So it was, these folks that you talk to, you actually can, they made 3D models and scanned them in sort of the upgrade. They were very much about, like, we figured out how to do 256 colors. And that was very cool for them, and so they just took, it's the same plot, but, it's upgraded graphics. So it was very cool. It was very cool. We have Quest for Glory 2, which is my favorite. You could actually import your character, which was neat. And it takes place in Shapir. It's sort of it's a desert thing. It's sort of it's playing off very much on media like Lawrence of Arabia and Casablanca. And things, things of that nature. So more intersectional stuff than anything else. But it plays on a lot of tropes that we had at the time. But it was a lot of fun going through, because there were a lot of secrets that you felt like you could uncover. And it was here also you could start learning how to be a paladin a little bit. Not a lot, but it's like if you did certain things, then at the end of the game you could become a paladin. Which was nice, and the way they do paladins in this series also very interesting. Here's where you have to help out a person who's been turned into a tree, which was very it was again, they had a lot of not combat stuff, which was nice. They had plenty of combat stuff, but also plenty of not combat stuff. Here you're talking to a seer named Aziza. Who's basically helping you find out what's going on, and you end up having to fight a bunch of elementals. There was a lot in this game that was very fun for me. I liked the setting, and I liked the different things that could happen. You had also this very sort of interesting way that you could. That's battle practice. But this also, again, had a day and night cycle. There was a map of the city that you would travel up and down to try to get to different places. That was a bit harrowing. Eventually you get to, you ride across the... eventually you ride across the desert with your Saurus on the back of a dinosaur to get to... this twin city that is on the other side of things, and where a lot more of this sort of here is a lot more of where the influence of films like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, in fact, come into play, as they've sort of combined both of Sidney Greenstreet's characters into one in this. That was a fun game. There was a company that remade it. That they basically they did it as a fan project. But they remade it in VGA because Sierra never got around to being able to do that. Sierra only did that with like the first. And it's going back and forth. I see between the two. It's showing you. Sierra basically was only doing those VGA updates with like the first in each of their series. Though it would have been neat to see more of it. But yeah, Trial by Fire was a very fun game for me, and it does have a lot of sort of Arabian Nights influence, which can be very hit or miss depending on what you're talking about. But it was, I liked it a lot. I think it was a well put together story. Then they did, of course, Quest for Glory 3, which is Wages of War, which takes place in the land of Tarna, It's actually a pretty short game. I think it's the shortest of the games. But it is it has some cool imagery. But it is if you actually know the way through it, then it does not take long to get through. And again, as part of sort of your quests, you sort of go and you have to talk to different villages as settlements to you know, prevent war from happening, because there's a group of demons playing Let's You and Him Fight, basically. But you have to cross the savannah, go up inside a really freaking huge tree, and get to this jungle on the other side, where there is rather a lot of mayhem going on. With the and you know, communicate with the village there, to try to help them out, and deal with this sort of demonic threat, this demonic incursion they're having to worry about. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, Shadows of Darkness, Quest for Glory 4, which is my second favorite of the Quest for Glory games. This very much plays on the very much sort of the Universal monster movies originally, but and kind of, you know, is there are certain things where it was like one might think there might have been an influence from Ravenloft to an extent here, as you've got certain similar ideas, but it very much takes place in its sort of more of a land where there is fear, and there's, you know, they throw in a lot of stuff from the Cthulhu mythos as well. And this is also, I think, the game where they introduce mad scientists as being people that operate in this world, and they start introducing weird science into it, and, you know, doing other things with the 4 elements. 5 elements, I'm sorry, I forget, because, you know, you have earth, air, fire, water, and pizza. Those are the 5 basic elements. There are some folks, from what I understand, and this is in the manual actually for one of the Quest for Glory games, that there's some folks who are adamant that there are only 4 basic elements, but a lot of the a lot of studies have more recently proven that fire is undoubtedly a basic element, so there are 5. Of course, the others not being in question at all, but this game very much also about redemption to a certain extent of folks. I think to a certain extent you do have a bit of a leg up in this game if you are a paladin. It is helpful, especially if you like to fight things. The way they did paladins again was kind of interesting, in that it was not tied to a specific religion. It was more just what sort of a person you are, and that was actually kind of cool. It was about being a good person. Amazing. But yeah, a lot of the same sort of old sort of tropes, vampires and what have you. Vampires, werewolves, and all manner of creatures. Quest for Glory 5 is a game that I played, and I actually that I also enjoyed. And in fact, I do still have that box. That I was able to hang on to. Yeah, Quest for Glory 5 was interesting because it was, I think, when Sierra was purchased by, I mean, eventually they ended up with Activision. I can't remember if it was a different company initially. They were getting pushed toward, it was toward the end of their era. We were getting into the 90s, and this was when everyone was going insane over the Doom engine. And so everything quite suddenly, Vivendi, Vivendi did, it was, I think that at that time, at that point, for the most part, any games that Sierra was putting out were entirely just dedicated toward that one thing. It was basically Ken and Roberta Williams, the founders, kind of decided at this point, yeah, we're just doing this. Here, just give us the money. Here's our blessing. Because they wanted to, get toward. They were very focused on just retiring as early as they could, I guess, and they did. But it was unfortunately, for the rest of us sort of sitting out here, we were not pleased because there were all the games in series at that point that they wanted to come out with, and I'll talk about King's Quest VIII later, but they wanted to do sort of the 3D running around thing at the very least, because they want, games are going in this direction, we got to keep up, and it basically crowded adventure games out. This, I think, was the most successful artistically, I think, of those attempts. They actually still they had the same people, or half the same people, one or two of the same people working on it. I think it was Laurie Cole who stuck around and worked on this one. I can't remember. It was either Laurie or Corey Cole. The two what were doing it. But yeah, it actually, this was the most successful. It actually still was. So this was the most like the other games in the series, is what I'm saying. This was actually like Quest for Glories 1 through 4, and had a lot of story elements. They brought back a lot of characters from Quest for Glory 1 through 4. And this one takes place it's a sort of Greco-Roman civilization where they have gladiators. But then you also, have this island that you wander around and fight monsters, and brigands, that you have to deal with, and it was actually it was a good deal of fun. I enjoyed it. A lot, and did go ahead and play it through. I played it through once. I didn't do the most Sierra games. Most of these games, the Quest for Glory games, 1 through 4, I played through like 3 times in each of like the different type. And this one, I think I only did once, probably maybe 1.5 times. It's a fun game, though. It is a lot. I did enjoy it quite a bit. And there's a thing where you fight a dragon at the end. Which I'm not seeing as I scrub forward, so we won't worry about it too much. But it was very enjoyable. I will say my ex, who I was living with, still at the time that I was still, some of these games I still had that were still playable. I introduced that to her, and she got terribly addicted to it for like a few days. She just didn't sleep. So there's something to it. And there's always this sort of odd bit of humor in it, as you might have noted. The elk's head had a glowing nose on it. So it was a lot of fun. And I did heartily enjoy those games quite a bit. They influenced a lot of how I sort of deal with tabletop RPGs and other bits of storytelling, and it kind of made me want to get into putting together. When I was a kid, I wanted to design games for Sierra Online, and I'm very glad that I didn't end up going that way, because I would have immediately been out of a job had I been had I tried to do that, because the industry went a different way. But it was a cherished part of my growing up, and there's a lot of sort of the makeup of how I do storytelling that's sort of involved in some of these games. So it was very cool. Evil Wing Commander. I enjoyed the Wing Commander series, I will say. I actually did. I don't think it was Wing Commander's fault. But there was a notable difference as one gets from as the Wing Commander series progresses. I will put it that way, and then you become Mark Hamill, which that's just the sort of thing that happens. Sometimes you become Mark Hamill. That's how it works. So I think we are getting close to the point that I'm gonna. It's noon. I gotta get going because I need to cook a thing, and eat a thing before we get into Las Vegas. But I shall go ahead and plug that real quick. Coming up later today, Las Vegas. We have. This is happening at 2 p.m. Eastern-ish. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Las Vegas will be happening around 2 p.m. Eastern. This is a game where the dealer, the GM, it's a round robin thing. Each one only has their own section that they run. I ran my section over the last couple of sessions, just getting it started, and Katie will be taking over as dealer for the game this afternoon. And I'm very much looking forward to it because I have no clue what's going to happen. And folks will get to find out more about the sixth person that was hanging out with them. This additional person whose name they have not heard yet. And the audience, at least, will get to find out his name when we get to it. So I'm very excited. It's very much a kind of a David Lynch / Quentin Tarantino experience, basically. Lots of violence and weirdness. I also was reflecting on my Discord a little while ago that the system it uses would actually, the fugue system, which is designed for narratives and round robin narratives in which the players wake up with amnesia, the player characters do. I think it would work well if you wanted to do an RPG set in the world of We Happy Few, which I played on this channel for a ridiculously long period of time, because of just the aspect of having forgotten a lot of things, and then slowly, as you're coming down from the joy, as you're coming down from the drug, you start to remember the horrible things that everyone did, so I think it would kind of it. Strangely enough, I think it would work well for that. But so that may be a project I may want to think about at some point. So that's happening later today. Then tomorrow tomorrow evening we have masks happening, and then Thursday and Friday mornings I'm not going to be on here because I'm going to be over on Dee's channel reading plays. Praxagor Thesmophoria. I'm going to be participating in Antigone on Thursday, a reading of Antigone, and then on Friday I will be participating in a reading of Richard III, which is going to be a lot of fun. I get to talk to myself a lot, as pretty much every Duke that they want me to be. So that'll be a lot of fun. On Score of Saturday evening we have... Saturday morning I think I'll be back playing Frostpunk. Saturday evening we have more... Invisible Sun that we're playing. On Sunday afternoon, we're actually going to be doing an Invisible Sun development session, to kind of get in a couple of the guests who are over in Europe and won't be able to make it at our regular game time. And then, of course, Sunday night we have our Dark Matter campaign, which I referred to at the beginning of this stream. Then that brings us back around to Tuesday. So Monday and Tuesday we'll have more things like this, hopefully, as we continue. I'm going to try to see if I can do more video game playing on some of these days that I don't have other stuff going on immediately. Might try to do it tomorrow, maybe. We'll see. Just gotta kind of figure out what I'm going to do, because I know I'm not ready to go back to do Tides of Numenera at this point. We discovered that last Friday. I don't know, maybe you want to see my farm? I can play Stardew Valley for a little while. I've got that going on. Maybe we'll see. It is a thing that can calm one. Let's see. Yeah, I think then what I shall do yeah, we're gonna go ahead and I think just go ahead and sign off at this point, so that I can get so that I can I need to start cooking a thing. It's yeah, time's a wasting, so we're gonna do that. So everybody, please take care. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all of a sudden. Farewell.